Welcome to the High Side Podcast. Had a little bit of a break coming in midweek. A little unusual for us. Schedule changes. We just finished Watkins Glen. SVG won the Cup race. Connor ZILISCH won the award for, taking go break a bone literally. And Austin Hill's back. So, yeah, I wanted to throw a curveball at you, Josh, because we've had some more information come out about the new NASCAR game. And I know you and I used to play that a lot. So,
Yes.
have you seen it?
I've seen a little bit, probably not as much as you.
Yeah, I've seen quite a bit. Your boy Dale Jr.'s on the basically head of this game. It feels like he's getting the soundtrack all together and pulling all the right strings to make sure this thing is better than NASCAR Heat Evolution and NASCAR 21 Ignition, I hope. So,
yeah, Dale Earnhardt Jr. just seems to be very important in pretty much every aspect of stock car racing, whether it be on TV, owning the best team in the Xfinity series, or making sure he puts together a banger of a video game, which everybody's been, looking forward to for basically 20 years at this point.
Yeah, when is the last time that you enjoyed a NASCAR like hand game?
Well, I think probably for both of us, it was probably around the 2011 time, because as you know, that's kind of where we met and had probably the most fun online. I know you stuck with it a little bit longer than I did, but outside of just the online aspect around 2011 or 2012 was realistically probably the Thunder series back to 04 or 05 or whenever those games were out. Just they always seemed to have the best when it came to career mode, and it we weren't like all online back in those days, so it seems like they've kind of just gone backwards ever since about 04 or 05 on the games, and they're not as fun to play unless you have a bunch of people to play them with.
Yeah, that was probably arguably the golden era. I don't think anyone would argue against that. People even, they'll throw Dirt to Daytona in there, Thunder 03, 04, even people liked 05. I think 06 when people's interest started to dip. So, yeah, definitely the golden era. But people will always come back to the Technics era, the ones we played a lot of and raced competitively on. That probably had the best handling of any of them, even more so than like those the golden era NASCAR game. The PS2 controller, like no trigger stuff. You just push a button to go. Unless you were on Xbox, of course. But I think the best era for like the NPCs, the AI, was probably the Heat, like the more modern Heat games. The AI on those were actually very enjoyable, in my opinion, and they had a lot of settings that you can go in and mess around with. But I think with playing the golden era, the Technics era, and the newer Heat era, people obviously care a lot about physics. I think motorsport games took that too literally when they made NASCAR 21, because that's about the only thing that was worth a shit in that game was the physics. I didn't play it, I wouldn't know. But I think you and I might know somebody who would say that it's one of the best physics games. I don't know for sure if Chris would say that. Not throw him under a bus.
He probably would. I've got a running inside joke that He bought one of them NASCAR Heat games 4 or 5 times, just between like PC and Xbox and downloadable content and stuff. So I think he would probably agree.
Yeah, I think, and he really sold it hard right before I got an Xbox One. He was like, "Yeah, you got to play this NASCAR Heat Evolution. It's one of the best NASCAR games," and it was just trash. That was terrible.
Yeah, that was basically like what everybody in the universe did that plays video games did with Grand Theft Auto 5. He just did with the NASCAR game.
Yeah. Although I would rather play 5
Oh
a
yeah.
million times over than I would Heat Evolution. uh, and then soon, I guess we can talk about GTA 6. I'm sure we'll see something soon, but uh, yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
getting
we're
back on the topic of the newer NASCAR game, I think people, at least the drivers, they seem pretty excited.
yeah, it's one thing that's really cool is there's a lot of the drivers and teams from what I've seen, on social media, they've all been pretty involved in kind of getting the game in front of us, and then it's also been very cool, like just the roster size in itself. I think it's probably the biggest roster that's ever been in a NASCAR or even probably a motorsports video game ever. I think there's more drivers in 3 other series than there are in the Cup Series. That's pretty cool. Um, but I think you'll be able to pick your own driver, your favorite driver for sure, and play with them in NASCAR 25, whether they're in the trucks or the Cup or even ARCA. So that's a pretty cool aspect.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this one. Um, and something I heard about yesterday, I don't know if you've caught this, and a little side topic still within the realm of iRacing since they're the ones doing the new NASCAR game. But apparently we're getting the Euro stock car division. Well, at least there's some rumblings about that. They partners up with iRacing if I've got the right series uh in mind here.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Maybe even Mexico. I feel like maybe I've heard something along the same lines. Maybe I don't know if it's like downloadable content at some point, but you're probably right.
I think I heard there might be a tweet about it, so I hadn't personally looked into it, but um one of our buddies, Noah, had mentioned that he was pretty excited about something, and I didn't get a chance to go look for it, but yeah, obviously you can tell how good we are at our job here, fellas, so bear with us.
Yeah, like I said, the big roster. What do you think? Just like right off the top of your head, would be like the number one paint scheme you're looking forward to racing when that game comes out?
Oh, you know what? uh shit. Just because of his following, um I'm gonna go with two drivers who are not even like primarily NASCAR stars. But I would have to say like Frankie Muniz and Cletus McFarland.
That'd be two interesting ones for sure. I'd say I'll look forward to putting on the Raising Cane's machine from Tony Breidinger. I think that'll look pretty cool.
I
That's
need
one thing.
to
Also, our buddy Chris would agree with too.
I need to get in I need to get some like legacy cars, like Rusty Wallace cars in these NASCAR games. But I don't even know if Miller would be on board with that anymore. They're not even on a car anymore outside of Keystone Light, right?
Yeah, I think it would probably just say Rusty Wallace on it. It'd be kind of
Yeah,
boring, maybe.
just like the older games. Well, I guess we'll put aside the video games for now and jump into some of the cooler stuff. What do you want to start with a cool note or a sad note?
Let's start with a cool note first.
All right. The cool note is, for whatever reason, this Shane Van Gisbergen character decided to come over here and make our wild card races not wild card races, winning literally all but one road course.
Yeah, Coda was the wild card, and then the rest of them are just the SVG show.
Yep.
You
Do
know,
you
it's
have
a
like
real.
statistics?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a real wild card when Kyle Busch was actually racing for the win, like he was at Coda. So that might
Yeah.
be true.
SVG gave them all one more opportunity to like win a road course and then took it from there.
Yeah, yeah. I was looking at some stats for SVG before we came on. Like as we know, like this season, he's been on a tear in all the road course races. They've ran 5 of them. He has five top tens, 4 wins. He's sat on the pole in 3 of them. Led pretty much all the laps. But one thing I looked at in his career, he's started 11 road course races in just the Cup Series, and has a 8.1 average finish. Through I think it was 8.1 through 11 races. It might have even been 10th exactly. But out of that, there was one DNF he had at the Chicago Street Course last year, where he finished 40th. Without a 40th place finish, he's got like a 5th place average finish in the Cup Series on road courses, and basically just like 9 starts, which is pretty insane.
Let me ask you this, and maybe you'll be able to pull it up. What is his Cup Series win percentage?
Just on road courses?
Just in the entire Cup Series.
You have to. Well, he's got 38 career starts and 5 wins. Whatever the percentage would be on that. Well, we might get the data here.
We'll need some editing power for this one.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not good at math. 38 starts, 5 wins.
I'm going to cheat a little bit. Because let me tell you, folks, my ass dropped out of high school because of math.
I thought
I did
Racing
go back.
Reference would give me the statistic, but it did not, unfortunately.
38 starts and 5 wins equals what win percentage? That is a 13.16 win percentage.
Yeah, it's definitely killing it. We talked a couple of weeks ago, after I think it was maybe after he won Sonoma, or maybe even Chicago, about how they seem to, the fans and the industry itself maybe has seemed to start talking about the points system more, like whether they need to keep doing the playoff or change things. And I was of the belief that all of that talk, in my opinion, started coming up really like specifically this season, like within that 5-week window where he won Mexico and then won Chicago and Sonoma. And guys were talking about points because he was he was like 35th or something for the in season challenge, didn't even make it. With the wins now, he sits like 25th in points. Like he would have been in that and maybe even had a chance to win it at this point. But one thing I didn't get to talk about on that was he's basically just doing what Justin Marks hired him to do. They wouldn't have hired him if they probably still had the 2 road courses on the schedule, because it's not a lot to race for. But they hire a great road racer to come in, and they expect him to win, and he's done everything they ask of him and more. Getting 4 wins in one season out of 5 races, and still one more to go. Right now, if they reseeded without even putting in any of the bonuses for the points position at the end of the season, he's ranked third behind, I think, William Byron or Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin, which is pretty insane. 22 playoff points.
I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe you can tell me. Does Shane Van Gisbergen have the most wins on the season?
So that was 4. That would actually be tied with Denny Hamlin. I think both of those drivers have 4 wins this season.
That is insane to me. Like, imagine if this dude was imagine he sharpens his sword for ovals, and he just starts winning on ovals.
Oh yeah, he'd be dangerous for sure. Yeah, Denny Hamlin's been doing that ever since he won. Denny Hamlin won race 7 and 8, then he won race 15 and race 21 to get his 4. Gisbergen started halfway through this, little bit after halfway through the regular season, won race 16, 19, 20, and 24. So he's done a lot of damage, just in the last 8 weeks alone, and has really put himself into a position to really upset at least one driver, potentially in round 1 of the playoffs, because I could really see him advancing just on points alone that he's going to take into the playoffs. Like, how far do you think he could realistically go?
So second round is going to have a road course, right?
Yeah, they would have the Roval.
And then the third round consists of at least Talladega.
Correct. Yeah, they would determine the championship race at Vegas, Talladega, and Martinsville.
How good is SVG at Martinsville?
That's one thing they've always said about road course racers is, for some reason, Martinsville just kind of tends to be a track that they excel at, just because of the maybe technique on the brake pedal and stuff. So I mean, he's noted that he's getting better at the ovals. I think he really just needs to kind of be average in the round of 16, and that'll probably be good enough.
So, how many championships does SVG have in Australia? Isn't it like 4?
Yeah, it was something like that. He's basically like probably almost equivalent of like Jimmy Johnson from V8 Supercar racing.
So, I'm gonna spit out a small theory here, or maybe this is just completely out of left field. I don't know, but a lot of it is going to come down to driver. Obviously, he has to be able to navigate the ovals, and he feels like he's getting confident. He's getting more confident there. I think his best shot in terms of oval is going to be Martinsville or Talladega, but even Talladega might be a little bit of a challenge for him, because I don't see him as like a plate track ringer,
Yeah.
So Martinsville's probably his best shot in terms of ovals. He should be able to get through round 1. If he doesn't get through round 2, I think everyone will be surprised.
Yeah.
So I would say if he's confident enough and he wants it bad enough, he could probably go out there and do some damage at Martinsville.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too far out of the realm of possibility that he does make the Final 4.
Yeah, I tend, it's crazy, but I tend to agree. Just because every year, when's the last time we saw a playoff 10 race stretch where it was just perfect for every driver and nobody had any kind of mulligan race? Like, it's never happened.
Tony
That's why I
Stewart,
said,
maybe.
yeah, maybe Tony. He had like the worst 26 race stretch of any champion probably ever and won the championship. But that's why I said I think he just needs to be average in the first three. He's got the 22 playoff points at the moment. That's probably at this point where he's going to go in with, unless maybe he wins Daytona or something in 2 weeks. But I think if he's just average at Darlington, Worldwide Technology, and Bristol, that he could realistically get through. But I agree with you. If he can maybe get, as he would say, probably a little bit better at the Roval at Charlotte, nobody would be surprised if he wins that race. But one thing we got to remember is you take your playoff points with you every round. They reset back to 22 for him every round. So you can't be average anymore, and in the round of 8, that won't get you through. But
Yeah.
you just like you said, Talladega is always there. That could ruin anybody's season, and we've seen it before. So I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's very possible with just the sheer amount of points he's been able to accumulate. And that goes back to what I said earlier about that's what Justin Marks hired him to do. If he was to just have a maybe by his standards an average season and only win one of those races, we wouldn't be talking about this. But when you can put together 4 wins at one specific discipline, just at what your team hired you to do, you become dangerous. Whether you're a quote unquote ringer or just good on the ovals, because he could always go out and have a couple of good races and upset some people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be an interesting next stretch of weeks here to really see what's going to happen and what shakeups can be done throughout this section of the season. But outside of that, Josh, guess who's back in the Xfinity series?
I think you mentioned his name earlier. I'm going to guess Austin Hill.
Yeah, Austin's back.
Yeah.
He's
He
back,
took
man.
a vacation. Got a 1 week vacation. I'm sure he enjoyed it. Maybe, who knows? Watching another Austin drive his car and not do shit.
So what do you think, man? That incident off the carousel is a little bit sketch.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
Killing that car.
Oh yeah, Michael McDowell was, one uh more crazy hit away from that car just being completely demolished, like it already was. But we saw how many guys didn't check up for that crash. If he goes and hits the inside wall, then ricochets to the outside like he did, and then gets plowed into from the side, like that could have been really scary. But when I was watching it live, seeing McDowell went pretty wide on his own out of that corner, and I almost thought he was just going to wreck himself. Because there's no out of bounds line. There's no limit to how far they can go, and Austin Hill is just like, man, he's going pretty wide. I'm gonna see if I can outdo him, and just made a really dumb move.
Yeah, that kid is tearing up a lot of cars, man. I mean, and it's not even like, like two back to back, like near head on killer. I mean, you could probably argue that McDowell's is pretty head on.
Yeah. I think, obviously both of them were dangerous. I think everybody agrees only one of them was intentional, but I think just the just where that wreck was located on that track is kind of where everything just funnels. There's literally nowhere to go after you complete that runoff. Like I would say that, in comparison, they're obviously both dangerous, but that was probably an even more dangerous incident than what happened with Almirola a couple of weeks ago, just because the sheer fact of you're just hitting those jersey barriers on the side. Those aren't the Armco steel. Those aren't just your regular concrete with the soft wall, like they have everywhere. Those are pretty tough hits, and McDowell ate that like twice, and that just tears the cars apart too. Unlike just kind of a regular hit to a concrete wall.
Didn't McDowell? I might be mistaking him for another driver, but I could have swore he went through that fence some years ago, backwards when his rear suspension had pierced the actual fence.
Yeah, I don't remember specifically, but we know that Michael McDowell is no stranger to making it big when he gets involved in a crash.
Yeah, you're not lying about that. That dude has probably one of the most iconic COT wrecks of all time.
Yeah, probably. There's two of them. One of them everybody saw every angle of it in practice, and then I was joking actually last night with some teammates in my race last night that there's that, and then there's Elliott Sadler at Pocono, which is basically the moon landing of NASCAR. We know Elliott wrecked, but we really don't know much else besides that he wrecked, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, people believe he might have flipped.
It was just crazy, all those campers and everything on the back straightaway at Pocono, and unless the photos and videos have just been wiped from the internet, nothing seems to exist outside of the random TV angle that we got that didn't even show the impact.
You seen Sadler's interview on Dale Jr. Download about that wreck?
I don't believe so.
He mentioned that wreck and that he used that crash in his experience with that wreck and post wreck, and compared it to another wreck that he was in, I believe at Michigan, where he flipped over at Michigan in practice. And he said nobody can find footage of the flip at Michigan because that one NASCAR intentionally hid away from public view.
Yeah.
But supposedly they took Sadler into a private room and showed him this video soon after it happened, and he seen him over the height of the fence, which is why NASCAR abolished any kind of viewing of that video. It's gone.
That's crazy.
But he did mention for the Pocono wreck, nobody came to him about any kind of hidden video or anything like that, like they did for that Michigan wreck. So Sadler believes that there's no other angle for that wreck, that they just missed it.
Yeah, it's a lot of grounds to cover at Pocono, so that definitely could just be the case. But it's interesting that we're a decade or a little bit over
15
later
years.
at this point. Yeah, and we really don't even know how bad it actually was outside of just seeing the engine 100 yards away from the car on the back straightaway.
Yeah, and it's still like a topic of discussion. Like people still talk about that crash.
Yeah,
But
one thing's for sure is it probably did help some of the safety advancements, even though people may not believe it. Who knows? But sometimes you need those kind of wrecks to prevent worse future instances.
yeah, that's probably around the time where NASCAR started looking at tethering.
Oh yeah, like they do with the wheels and like the deck lid and the hood and everything. Like those, it has to be a really bad accident to get one of those flying.
Um, well, back on Austin Hill, what do you think either A has to happen for Austin to finally let up and cool off, or B, do you think he ever will? Is it too late for him to learn? And is this just how he is?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's too late for him to learn. Um, because we see guys in the Cup Series, you know, Carson Hocevar is the name that comes to mind. He may not be as big of a menace at this point, but I think before this season, everybody would have probably agreed that Carson Hocevar was the most dangerous driver in NASCAR, at least in the top three series. But Austin has just unfortunately had kind of a rough season when it comes to things like that, whether it be intentional or just dumb moves. But like you said earlier, he's like tearing up a lot of cars, and that's just one thing that I think Richard Childress just needs to take him under his wing and just be like, hey, you can't to advance in the sport, you can't keep doing that. Kind of like Jack Roush or somebody would have done with Ricky Stenhouse, because I know Ricky was very similar in the Nationwide Series at the time. He was tearing up a race car pretty much every single race, and then it changed for him. He can still be a menace at times in the Cup Series, but he's probably a guy nowadays that a lot of young drivers look up to, just for racing advice and stuff. So I think he can change. Will he? I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be capable or not. Just because I think we've witnessed the public persona within the garage area for him. Like a lot of the drivers and analysts think that, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, his Martinsville thing where he stood up and said that he could be a guy for young drivers to look up to and lean on. They all thought something like that was laughable. So you go and keep adding negatives onto your resume, and people are just gonna go further and further away. So it might hurt him in the long run as far as Cup rides and stuff, but we'll see.
We'll see. Yep.
It might come down just to how much Richard Childress actually really cares. The
I think
the performance
he's
the
completely
performance
clueless.
yeah, the performance of his teams are not where they need to be. Like the team really kind of just exists in both series. So it's hard to say what goes on within in that building, but hopefully it gets better for him, because it needs to be better for everybody else he's racing around. So
You're probably right about the whole. You know what? I don't know that I can put too much blame on Austin Hill, because I mean, when you got an enabler like Richard Childress allowing drivers like, Austin, how is Kyle Busch the most well-behaved driver that I could think of in that organization right now.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Maybe they need to get rid of Austin and put Ty in the 3 and
Shit.
move Austin on. See what Ty can do. Like, I don't know that he would even do much better, just because I do think the team just as a whole is kind of a disaster right now, and I think anybody that really knows anything about the sport can see that just by the way Kyle Busch alone runs. Like, I've had conversations with people, and I'm not really of the belief anymore that the driver can really make a difference in the next gen car like they used to be able to in Gen 6, 5, or 4. A really good driver could make a bad car a top 10 car any day. Like we saw that with Kyle Larson a lot, when he was with Ganassi. But I just don't think that's possible anymore. As close as the Cup Series is, like, if your team is bad, you're probably just going to be bad. So they definitely need to get better.
Yeah. No other way to cap that off. I guess we'll jump over here to Collarbone ZILISCH. Took a nasty fall.
He did. And just aside from the fall, it's just just another race where Connor ZILISCH is just kind of owned the competition. Like, he hasn't been like just like the super dominant driver the entire season, but since his wreck at Talladega, he's won 5 races, and I think he's won like 5 out of 7 or something now, 5 out of 6, which is really insane. Like, what he's been able to do, just kind of like SVG in such a short period of time. But he's doing it on both ovals and road courses, and even taking it to SVG and his own series in Xfinity.
After wiping out SVG, that's probably how Connor fell. The SVG probably threw a boomerang at him. We probably just didn't catch it on TVs. It's so fast.
It's possible. We looked into those percentages on Gisbergen just on road courses alone, but in the Xfinity series, Connor ZILISCH has double the amount of wins of anybody else. He's got 6. Justin Allgaier and Austin Hill both have 3. He's got 6 wins and 22 starts, and like I said, that's like 6 out of 7 or 6 out of 8 or 5 out of 7 or something crazy. So he's doing it on basically every discipline of racetrack, and it's still really tight for their championship, their regular season championship. But he's definitely, I think, probably put himself as the favorite for the championship.
I'd have to say so. Do you have like his Xfinity win percentage, or what his starts and wins are? And then I'll do the calculation.
Yeah, we'll do a little racing reference search on Connor ZILISCH real quick. Just, you want career numbers?
Yeah, let's see what we could pull up on Mr. ZILISCH here. And for now, here's a word from our sponsor.
Vspeed. Splash N Go. He's got 26 career starts in the Xfinity series with 7 wins. He had 4 starts last year, 22 this year. So 7 wins and 26 starts.
Oh, that is a 26.92 win percentage.
Yeah, like, that's insane.
That's like NFL level, like win percentages.
Yeah, he won. He went in his first ever start and the Xfinity series last year. whooped everybody at Watkins Glen. Did it again this weekend. Last year in just 4 starts, he had 3 top 10s and top 5s. He was average finish of 5.3 just in those 4 races last year. He's got a 9.5 average this year. And, that's even with a couple of DNFs. So, that, there's not guys like, Connor ZILISCH. I feel like that come around often. I think we talked about Kyle Larson, the same way Connor's getting talked about right now. And before Kyle Larson, it was probably Joey Logano. But I think 99% of the people that watch the sport would believe that kid is going to be the next guy in NASCAR.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair assessment, considering. Any notable victory lane injury you think of?
Yeah, I don't think so. There's the one iconic one that everybody probably remembers isn't an injury per se, but Tony Stewart wins the race at Watkins Glen, and then instead of going straight to victory lane, he had to go to the porta potty. But outside of that, I can't say I remember anybody getting hurt in victory lane. It's got to be the sweetest way to get hurt. Obviously, he didn't want to do that. His nobody watching wanted to see him or anybody get hurt celebrating victory. But if you're gonna get hurt outside of the race car, you might as well do it in victory lane.
Yeah, the only one I can think of, and we probably won't be able to show this because of gore. YouTube is going to get upset, little crybabies. But Brad Keselowski slicing his hand open off of a champagne bottle.
Yeah, the big Miller glass at Homestead.
I think that was just an injury of his liver.
Yeah, he had so much alcohol in him already, and adrenaline fueling him through that celebration.
But yeah, man, is there anything else we should cover while we're here?
Yeah, I would say one thing, just back to ZILISCH. I think seeing the video and just like the still photo, a lot of people probably actually assumed the worst. I know like the first thing that people probably thought of was, oh man, that's probably like a broken foot or ankle, and then you see the still photo of, it looks like he's like doming the top of his head. So I think he probably ended up, coming out of that lucky with just a broken collarbone. Like that could have been a lot worse as like a head injury or even, a bad foot injury that, would likely, keep you out of a race car for a while. So, luckily for him, they've got an off week in the Xfinity Series coming up. They obviously pulled him from the Cup race at Watkins Glen, so they, he wouldn't have been able to do that race anyways, but, they're going to give him time to come back. Hopefully he's back, before the end of the regular season and going to be okay to race. But, even if not, that'd give him, 3 weeks to rest up for the playoffs. And, he would for sure get a waiver to go and compete for a championship that he definitely deserves to go and race for. So, but, hopefully he heals up just fine and can go and compete.
You'll think he'll have that Chase Elliott / Alex Bowman injury spell?
If this is the one that gets him, I'd be surprised because, he's all but one of his races that he's won this season, he won right after his back injury at Talladega that put him out for a race. So, he might just be invincible. Might be like Superman or something.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. Superman ZILISCH, a big Z on his chest. We'll see what he can come back and do some more. It's going to be an interesting stretch to the end of the season. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, and a lot of negativity about the next gen car. Maybe we can cover that on the next episode.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we covered just about everything. A lot of domination by Trackhouse drivers, Shane Van Gisbergen in the Cup Series, and Connor ZILISCH doing it for Junior Motorsports and Xfinity. And then you've still got Ross Chastain out there that might be able to, pick up a win and maybe even have a more legit shot at a title than SVG. And then, obviously they've still got Suarez for 12 more races. All three of those drivers finished in the top 10 at Watkins Glen. So good time to be a Trackhouse driver right now.
Oh yeah, definitely. What a team. Hell of a force out there. Really in any kind of discipline that they get on. But yeah, I think that's we'll wrap it up there, guys. Just check us out on social media. You all have a good one.